Hey there. First thing I'll do is warn you that this is going to be a rather long video, long-winded video, so much that I've got a bottle of water here in case I start to lose my voice from talking. I am going to talk about this right here in the video. It's called an Ebow. If you're watching this video or you somehow happened upon this video just to know about the Ebow, I also want to warn you that that's not the primary thing I'm going to talk about, and you probably want to fast forward until you see this in my hand again. The main thing that I'm going to talk about is how I went about recording a song that my father wrote called the Sinless One. And it's kind of neat. I do have the little Library of Congress certification copyright for this song right here. And I don't know exactly, but I believe the song was probably written around 2012, somewhere in there. So one of his newer songs. I always really liked the song. I always thought it had a terrific first line. The first line being, "There was a time when in the darkness men searched in vain to find the way." I thought that was just such a cool opening line. I also like the way the pitch runs in this song. It's really only about a four chord song. But Pap sometimes seemed to have a way of, he could use the same three chords, you know, like for example G, C, and D that everybody uses, and he would find a path for the melody to follow that would be different. And I don't think that was an accident. I think that was by design. He always wanted he didn't want his music or his songs to sound like anybody else's, and he would keep searching as far as that melody until he found a way to make that happen. Another good example of this is the song that he wrote, Angels of Mercy, which is a three-chord song, I'm pretty sure. But the melody line, especially in the verses, just kind of stays off the more well-beaten, well-trodden path. And I think the same thing is true for this song, maybe to a lesser extent, but definitely still true. So when Pap would sing this song, he would sing it in A major right there. Never had a recording of this song, and he and I sang it together probably only a handful of times. I don't think I had any sort of guitar break when we would just sit around and sing it. So going to record this song really meant starting from scratch in terms of an arrangement. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how that came to be. This song, to me, that first line comes out with a certain level of intensity. Not that it's pitched really high or anything like that, but it just seems to sort of start already kind of pressing. And so the beginning is, "There was a time." So to me it's just already kind of pushing or pressing. So when I tried to think about how to do that, how to represent that same sound, picking on an acoustic guitar, I really thought of having, well, let me show you in G. It'd be a lot easier to show you in G. Most songs, if you were going to hit that note, the average flat top picker like me, you would probably grab the B string and the G string and hit that note right there. There was a time. But to have that more intense sound, what I imagined doing in my head was letting go of the B string and having only the G string. Which is a more intense sound. There was a time. So that's all I had in my head as far as an arrangement. And about a week or two before I went to record the song, I started playing around with that, and I thought, well, that's all well and good, but that's just one note. How are you going to maintain that sound as you play the song? There's really no good way to do that. And so I was a little bit discouraged for a while. And then one night, I was up at my mom's house, and my dad's old Blue Ridge guitar stays there. She'd gone to bed. And I got the guitar out and I started playing around with it, and it came to me so quickly and so easily. I can't help if the Lord didn't have some hand in showing me what I was looking for. On one hand, I would say, well, what I'm doing, my project is so small, why would he be interested in it, the Lord? But on the other hand, anything that glorifies his Son, and Pap's songs definitely do that, I think he would have an interest in it. So what came to me is, that's kind of an open sound. So what if I make the guitar more open altogether by tuning the bottom string down to an open D, like this. Now I said open D, of course I'm in G, but I believe that string is normally an E, right? I believe I've tuned it down 2 frets to be a D. Yep, that kind of proves it right there. Now playing around back here, that's not the sound I was looking for. Number one, that's a little too much of the same sound, and number two, it's just not the right kind of mood. So here's the part that just came to me very easily that I thought might have been inspired, which is to grab the B string way down here in what would be the D position of G. There was a time when in the darkness, actually it would be, when in the darkness men searched in vain to find the way. And not only did I find how to really play that part the way I wanted to do, it also had several other bonuses. Ed Ammons, who comments on a lot of our videos, recently he talked about happy accidents. So there were at least 3 big happy accidents, if not more, in the recording of this song. And by the way, you will hear the full recording of this song at the end of this video. That's kind of why I'm doing this, or part of why I'm doing this video, is it's not going to get a lot of views on just the regular Paul Wade Wilson channel, not as many as it would get here. And of course what I'm after is as many people as possible hearing these original songs. Back to, though, the picking. So it not only helped with that part that I was looking for, but it gave me this really interesting break, not break in terms of like take a guitar break, but musical break or intermission between verses and choruses, which is kind of a roll. So as I said, that's that D position of G, although really all I'm getting is the B string. Well, what would go with that? Imagine you were back here and you had this D, you could get this F position of this G. So right here is C, which is the high chord of G, the key that I'm in. So it created this little place where I could roll back and forth between C and G major. Just a real pretty sound. In the recording I did a lot better job than what I just did there as far as the roll. And you know, you don't, or I didn't want to spend all my time this far down the neck, even though this Taylor really surprised me with what a great job it did staying in tune. I haven't done any special tuning to make it turn out right, you know, 7, 8, 9 frets down the neck. It's just a standard tuning, but it really impressed me with how accurate it stayed. So after the break, or actually after the introduction in the recording, I do work my way back here to just the standard G, and this same tuning still sounds good there. and part of the recording uses the dove, comes in during the break on this guitar. The dove is playing back here. Another cool thing that was sort of not a complete accident, it was a little bit planned. When I used to sing this song by myself a little bit in the regular A position, when it would go around the horn to B7, sometimes I would get my B all the way down here and I would leave the bottom string open, and it would create sort of a tension type sound that to me went along with the tension of the melody in this song. Well, strangely enough, when you come back here and you get G, now you can do the same thing and you don't even have to leave anything open. Now you can just hit A like you would going around the horn in G, and you have that strange sound. It doesn't sound that good right there by itself, but as the melody is over top of it, it's really they accentuate each other. Or you could do it right here. So I really like that. So I'll go through the break, all of the break, and then I will go through, there is a key change in this song. I normally would sing this song, and Pap always sang it in A, but I wound up singing it in G for the sake of the music. Because if I had sang it in A, then I'm going to be way down here, which is just pushing it a little bit too much in terms of me being able to play it right, and then maybe with the accuracy of the guitar. So what I did, I sang a verse and a chorus here in G, played it, then changed key to go to A, which is really the more comfortable, better place to sing it. Sang the second verse and chorus there, and wrapped it up. And that's when the Ebow shows up, when I get that far. So the break was something like this. Now the real note right here, it's fixing to go to E minor. No, it's fixing to go to D, then E minor. The real note would be, but instead I slid on this G string, and it just creates a totally different sound. I need to just shut up and play it here. I found it. That's the verse, here's the chorus. Something like that. After that is when it changes, and this was really difficult, but I got really lucky with it because it changes with the vocal. So the vocal has to pitch into A. Now you may be thinking, if you're a singer, well, big deal, you know, everybody should kind of be able to go from G to A. It's not that difficult, but what made it difficult is the last strum of the guitar is actually in C. The high chord of G, and that C has nothing in the world to do with this A that you're about to throw your voice to. I got lucky, and the second time I tried it, I hit it, and then you can hear that in the song. So then it changes here, and then I'll show you kind of how the chording sounds in this position. The search was made through earth and heaven son, till one was found who could be given my Father's Son, the Sinless One. There is a sacrifice now given. There is a way, there is a way, there is a way from earth to heaven, my Father's Son, the Sinless One. Now the rolling that I was doing in G now becomes right here in the middle of the neck. The first time I did roll it something like that. The second time it was more of a jerk or a slide. And as I'm doing this, I realize that a lot of this doesn't sound very good by itself. Hopefully you'll feel like it, or you'll think it sounds good when you hear it all together. But that's just a little bit about the guitar and the way I approached it. And so if you are a guitar player and you had already heard the recording and you thought something sounds different about that, does he have chorus on the guitar? What's making that different sound? Well, it's all created by just that bottom string being lowered like that. It affects every chord. For example, back in G, this would be the part, just to give you some context. So, there was a time when in the darkness men searched in vain to find the way to flee the judgment of destruction. So this is to flee the judgment of destruction, which goes to D major. But somehow when you do that with this bottom string tuned down and you're down in this position, that's such a, you're not sure, is that a minor, is that a major, what is it? And then when you put your finger on this bottom string, that's just, to me, some unusual, very cool sounds. It's like it's a major and a minor at the same time. It's a minor and it's a 7 at the same time. Anyway, I was just really pleased with how all that turned out, and it seemed to suit the song. So the way the Ebow came about in this recording, I bought the Ebow probably 20 years ago from Musician's Friend. I saw it an advertisement and I started reading about it. And what an Ebow does is it transmits an electromagnetic field, which when you hold it over a guitar string, it makes this guitar string start to vibrate, which is the same thing that happens when you pick it, except with the Ebow there's no pick sound, there's no pluck, there's only the tone. It's almost like if you showed up after I'd picked it and you heard only the tone and not the pick. That's what the Ebow does. I have no idea who invented it, although it came with a lot of paperwork. It probably says, and if not, I'm sure you can find out on the internet. But I bought this way back then. I fooled around with it, really couldn't do anything that satisfied me, even though it came with a lot of instructions and even with a cassette tape to tell you how to do it. I like this. It came with this little pin, so if you got really good at it and you no longer needed a pick, you could just go around wearing that. That's just a pick with a line through it. In this little fold out, it has a list of 100 songs or recordings that I guess are semi-famous that feature the Ebow. I noticed Elton John in there, Van Halen, the Cars, a bunch of people. So I was looking for something different for this song, again starting from scratch, and in making the CD I'm trying to make every song have sort of its own identity. So I thought, what about that Ebow thing? Now when I had tried it years ago, I tried it just on a flat top, and I wasn't able to note it. It was just like you would just get, all I could really get was just a sustaining note, and I forgot about it and gave up. By the way, it has a little 9-volt battery inside. That's what powers it. So I thought of it again, and then I thought, aha, Corey and Katie both now have electric guitars. I'll go use the Ebow on one of their electric guitars. I'll figure out what I'm going to do, and then I'll borrow their guitar and I'll come and put it on my recording. I had seen Ron Sexsmith, Canadian singer that I really like. He wrote the song and sang the song Strawberry Blonde. And I saw, not on that song, but in the concert, I saw his guitar player using one. And it was really beautiful, and he was just kind of slowly moving the note around. When I tried it on Corey and Katie's guitars, it definitely worked, but the sounds that I could get were just not pleasing sounds. They both described it, and I agreed. As one said, well, that sounds kind of like Arabic music, you know, like not the full major scale that the Western world is accustomed to. Another one said, that sounds like it's out of a horror movie. So those were the sounds that I was able to create on their electric guitars. Kind of creepy / foreign / weird. So I kind of gave up, and I had the bass and the guitar, as I just demonstrated it, both recorded. And I thought, well, I'd left a big, nice open gap there once the song goes to A for some sort of second instrumental break. And I sent it off to a gentleman, really nice guy named Mark Richland, who has played piano on some of Dad's other songs. And I asked him to play throughout the whole song, and I asked him to play a break, you know, play lead in that second gap. And this is another one of those happy accidents. For whatever reason, he didn't play a break. He just continued to play rhythm during that big hole. And I really love his rhythm. It's almost like a Bruce Hornsby type rolling, bouncing's not the right word, but it's just a very moving rhythm. There's kind of something going on with it all the time. Anyway, while he still had the track kind of working on it, I was just sort of in a holding pattern waiting, and I thought, what would happen if I played the Ebow on dobro, on a resonator guitar? So I'm going to grab that and show you how I wound up playing it in the recording. This is a Recording King dobro, which is really a copy of a Gibson, but much more affordable. It's a great instrument. I wish I was an actual dobro player. I'm not, but I can use it, you know, just sparingly in recordings. Now, notice I had to kill those strings. Just even as I'm talking right now, my voice is bouncing around inside this resonator. Inside there is almost like a metal dish shaped like this. Underneath this bridge is a spider bridge, so little metal arms that come down and touch. I don't know if you can hear that, but the sound, as I said, is bouncing around in there. So that's going to create way more sustain than just my flat top guitar. Almost as much sustain, really, as the electric guitar. So that's why I thought it was worth giving this a try. Now, this is tuned in an open G, and that bottom string, excuse me, is tuned down, just like the one that I showed you on the flat top once I tuned it down to that D. The bass of the Ebow, and maybe I should do a close-up shot, has two little grooves. You set those on the strings that you're not going to play, and then that creates this little channel over the string that you want to vibrate, and that's where the electromagnetic field is going to make the string start to wiggle and produce that sound. The switch can be turned two different ways. It's two different electromagnetic fields, and I'm sure there's a difference and a reason. I just experimented, and it seemed like turning it to the left created the best sound. You know it's working when you have the little blue light, but right now there's nothing to vibrate. You have to hold it down over the string. So I'm going to be playing the bottom string, so I'll just put this groove on the B string, and this other groove will just be hanging out there in the air because there's only 6 strings and I'm playing the 6th one, the bottom one. Pretty cool, right? Hopefully you could hear that. So, some things that were tricky. It's almost starting to vibrate again. Let me turn it off. Some things that were tricky. I wanted to use this at the opening of the song. Well, it's not an immediate thing like plucking the string is immediate. It takes a while for that magnetic field to start moving that string. So headphones on, listening to the click track, before the song starts, I have to position this there and get that string moving. But you don't want the string to be heard too soon. So what I did, I turned it on. Of course, there's the mic right here. Got the string vibrating, laid my hand across the strings till the song started, actually just a beat or two before the song started, then lifted my arm. So that this would start in time with the music. That took a few tries, but that's the way that I went about that. So that is G, the song starts in G, and this is just before There Was a Time. Take the slide up to the 5th fret, which is a D note. If you move D up, 5 times, you get G. So that is the beginning of the song, as far as the Ebow. When in the darkness men searched in vain to find the way to flee the judgment of destruction, the cost for sin someone must pay. Not very easy to sing and play it at the same time. Of course, I was doing it a piece at a time. The vocal was already laid down. This Ebow, you can just put it there and you can get a sound, but if you listen real carefully and you tilt it, there it is. There's definitely a sweet spot, and that sweet spot has almost 2 tones to it, almost an overtone. If you look on YouTube and you find Mongolian throat singers, where they have 2 tones going on at once, that's what this can sound like, similar, if you find that sweet spot. It's like 2 frequencies happening at the same time. Another thing to compare it to, I lost my train of thought, but it makes me think of 2 things when you get that double frequency kind of happening. I guess one of the last things I'll tell you about is another happy accident. So as we go through the song, I'm really going from this 5th fret to the 7th fret, then up to the 9th fret, back to the 7th fret, occasionally back to the 5th fret. Now, believe it or not, with those 3 frets plus just open, you can hit pretty much every note that's in this entire song. And the way I approach music as someone who plays by ear, I don't really know what the notes are. Like, this is in G, but oh, that's a D note. I mean, if I stop and think about it, or if somebody asks me, I can sort of figure it out, but I'm not normally thinking about that. So going between those 3 frets was mostly instinct and hearing the right sound. But I'll see if I can show it by plucking, and then I may even try it with the Ebow. If you remember the roll that I was doing way down here, so G, C, G, C, stopping in C the last time, which you'll hear again in the recording, and then in A it was A, D, stopping in D the last time. That was accomplished on this by going between that 9th and that 7th back and forth, just like kind of like that, except with the Ebow. Now you can hear that right at the beginning of the Ebow's break. So I talked about the happy accident of Mark only playing rhythm, so the Ebow actually took the break. It became the lead instrument, and you can hear it coming in before the break starts, because I played the Ebow through the entire song, and it wasn't that difficult either, just moving around in those different places. It was actually a ton of fun to play it, but I decided not to overuse it. I only used it at the beginning, and then in that once we've made the migration to A. My flip cam stopped on me. The battery didn't die, but it was full, so I had to delete some stuff, and I really don't know where it left off, so I'm going to back up a little bit. The last thing I was talking about was a happy accident of accidentally sliding up to a D note before it was really time to do so. And as I was saying, my hand was just kind of tired of being in a certain position. I had slid to the A, which is the key and chord that the song is in, and was just kind of waiting there, and my hand just moved. It just moved up to the other position, to the D note, when it wasn't really time. But if you hear the recording, that proved to be a very happy accident, because it created this note that just goes on up there by itself, and it just hangs there and waits there until the bass and the guitar then join it. And it creates this opposite effect. Really, they went up to join it, but it almost sounds like it levitated down to where the rhythm music was, or rhythm backing was. And what I'm describing might not make a whole lot of sense. What I'll try to do is put in the description maybe the minute/seconds of where to listen for what I'm talking about. But it was a happy accident, very much. I guess I should try to play this a little bit. There was a time when in the darkness men searched in vain to find the way to flee the judgment of destruction. The cost for sin someone must pay. There was no there was no there was no I can't find that. There was no sacrifice yet given. There was no way from earth to heaven. No Father, Son, no Sinless One. It really sounds like just a random noise right now, but it did work out pretty nicely in the song. I made a complete mess of explaining in that part of the video, and for several reasons. One, it was a mistake to try to just take this out of the case. Same thing with the Taylor guitar and the open tuning, and just think I would just take it out of the case and do something that I hadn't done in months, that I learned just for the recording and hadn't done since, and think that I could just pull it off. That, and being a little bit nervous in front of the camera, and then also just a couple of things that make that part confusing to begin with. Number one, D is the higher chord for A, yet in playing it here, it's actually lower on the neck than the A. And when I was explaining it, I said that instead of waiting, I went on up to the D note and waited there. That's actually backwards. I should have stayed in the D because it's rolling back and forth between D and A. And when it's in A, it actually stays there in D. It's what some musicians would call an unresolved, because it goes up there and it doesn't come back, at least not right away or when it should normally come back. And when it was in G, it goes up to C and stays there in that unresolved position. So what I said was backwards. I should have just stayed in the D, but for some reason my hand was kind of tired and it just slid on its own back up to the A and hung there until all the music then joined it in A. So let me see if I can maybe demonstrate that. So I'm going to get the Ebow on here. It's just barely in frame. I'll slide it up so you can see it. And that little tinkling is because I'm actually touching the string. You're not supposed to touch the string that's vibrating. So here's A. And so in that roll that's going back and forth between A and D, what the Ebow is doing is this. And the song does that 3 times, and the last time it stays there in D. So I'll do this again. And then I should have stayed there, but my hand kind of got tired and I went on up back to the A, and then the break started. So that's kind of the way the break is. We're in A here. That's just before the chorus. One more time. Something like that. I've talked enough, just blathered on and on, so I'll stop now. I hope you enjoy that song. If you're a Christian, if you're a believer, then I hope you especially enjoy that whole concept about now there is that perfect sacrifice that covers us all. No more insufficient sacrifices like the ones that went on for years and years in those dark times that Pap talked about at the very beginning of the song. You know, no oxes, no goats, no sheep, nothing like that wouldn't really fill the bill. But the ultimate perfect sacrifice, which of course was Christ on the cross. As much as I've talked, I feel like I probably left out some stuff that I wanted to share, but anyway, this is probably more than you ever wanted to know about how I went about recording that song and how I came up with that arrangement. I guess I talk so much about it because it is one of my favorites so far in terms of how it turned out, to just go from nothing to kind of that finished product. It really just has a bass, piano, guitar, and Ebow, so 4 instruments plus a vocal. So a lot of folks, professional musicians, might listen to that and it's very simple. But to me it was like putting together a puzzle, and it did have some complexity to it, and it did require some either happy accidents or help from the Lord along the way to get it to where I wanted it to be. Thank you for watching all this, and now we'll let the song go ahead and start. The artwork that you see there is one of the very old engravings that a gentleman did back when the Bible was just first being printed, on a wide scale for the public. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I'll try to put that in the description below. And that's public domain now, that engraving, that artwork, and it pictures Christ in Gethsemane. You can see some of the disciples in the foreground kind of sleeping there, and so it captures or shows Christ in that moment, probably shortly before he's going to pray to the Father to see if there might be some other way, if the cup might be able to pass from him, and of course there was no other way. But anyway, that's why I chose that. You always have to have an image to go along with any kind of online release, and just thought I would mention that's where that came from. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed or found some of this somewhat interesting.
There was a time when in the darkness men searched in vain to find the way to flee the judgment of destruction. The cost for sin someone must pay. There was no sacrifice yet given. There was no way from earth to heaven, no Father, Son, nor Sinless One. The search was made through earth and heaven to find the perfect righteous Son, till one was found who was so worthy, my Father's Son, the Sinless One. There is a sacrifice now given. There is a way from earth to heaven, my Father's Son, the Sinless One. The perfect sacrifice now given, your only way from earth to